We are the Better Living for Texans agents for Texas A&M AgriLife in Harris County. And we are going to be giving a little presentation today called Rethink Your Drink. And we're going to be talking about some great ways to avoid extra added sugars in your beverages and then some healthy alternatives. And we'll be doing some recipe demonstrations at the end. So let's get started. Okay, so overview of what we're going to do today is talk about the health implications of added sugars. We're going to talk about added sugar on the nutrition facts label, how to really use that label as an important tool to reduce your added sugars. And then also we're going to talk about the added sugars in your beverages and, like I mentioned, some healthier alternatives.
So first we want to, address what exactly added sugar is. So we do have two types of sugar. We've got added and naturally occurring. So added sugar is going to be sugar that we're adding at some point during our food preparation, whether it's during processing when a food manufacturer is making that product, or when we're preparing it at home, maybe making cookies or something like that, or even at the table when, maybe we're sweetening our coffee or tea in the morning. And it's really found in a lot of our food items, sweetened beverages, baked goods, dairy-based desserts, candies, the list goes on. But something else to keep in mind as well is it's very often found in foods that we have either been told or assumed to be healthy, things that might be promoted as a health food item, like granola and cereal and our yogurt, which are all very healthful foods, but some do have a lot of added sugars. So that's just something to be mindful of. And we're going to talk in detail about our nutrition facts label and finding added sugar on it. But we also, want to occasionally look at our ingredients list. It can really clue us in on what's going on with our foods. And the ingredients list can have added sugar listed by so many different names. So we've got some of the examples here, things like high fructose corn syrup, sucrose, maltose, molasses, things like honey and maple syrup, maybe while less processed than regular table sugar, are still considered an added sugar. And they are providing a lot of empty calories, which we'll talk about here in just a second. So, why worry about our added sugar intake? What's the big concern there? So as I mentioned, they provide a lot of empty calories. What that means is the sugar is adding calories. It's adding nothing else really. So with our naturally occurring sources of sugar, things like fruit, we get so many health benefits. We've got fiber, vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and all of the great things that our body needs to be nice and healthy. And so by getting those empty calories, not only are we, maybe getting excess calories, more than we need for the day, but we're also missing out on getting some of our other nutrients that can lead to a nutrient deficiency potentially. But as you can see, there's a lot of health factors to consider too, that excess sugar is related to, things like increased risk for cavities and, as I mentioned, weight gain, even heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes, a lot of these chronic conditions that, good nutrition and wellness can really help reduce our risk for.
Okay, so now we're going to take a look at a nutrition facts label, and you've probably seen this on most of your packaged foods that you purchase. The nutrition facts label has undergone some changes recently. Certain things have become bigger and bolder, and it's a little bit easier to interpret. And it can be a really great tool for us to make better, healthier decisions when we're shopping. Take a look at the information on this, and you should be able to choose things that are lower in the nutrients that you want to be decreasing in your diet, and also higher in those things that you want to increase. So in this case, we're going to take a look at the carbohydrate section, which is going to include our sugars. So if you see right in the center of that label there, you see total carbohydrates, and it's in bold, and it says 37 grams. And then underneath that, you will see that the other, the types of carbohydrates are broken down a little bit. Now, total carbohydrates is going to include, in our food, it includes the starches, the fibers, the total sugars, and any sugar alcohols present. But our nutrition facts label is only going to list a couple of those. It's going to list the total, and then it's going to show us fiber and our sugars. So that's what we're seeing there on the label. And you can see that because it's indented under total carbohydrate. You see that there's an indentation a little bit, and it says dietary fiber 4 grams, and then it says total sugar 12 grams, and then indented further under total sugars is finally our added sugars. And you can see that there's 10 grams of added sugars there in this product, in one serving of this product, whatever it may be. So the starches and sugar alcohols are not required to be listed individually. So all we're going to see on this label is the fiber and the sugars. The total sugars there is going to include both of those naturally occurring and the added sugars, but then it's only going to list the added sugars. So if you want to find out how much naturally occurring sugars are in there, you just have to do a little bit of math, and you see that total sugars is 12 grams. The 10 grams were added sugars, so that means 2 grams were your naturally occurring sugars, like Kristina mentioned, those that occur naturally in your fruits and vegetables or other products. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. And so our added sugar recommendations from the USDA is to be getting less than 10% of our total calories per day of added sugars. Now this is going to pertain to your average 2,000 calorie diet for your average healthy person. That's how the USDA comes up with these recommendations. Of course, we're all a little bit different in our calorie needs and our nutrient needs, but this is for your average healthy person. And so if we keep this added sugar to about 10% of our total calories per day, this translates to less than 50 grams or 12 teaspoons of sugar per day. Keeping in mind that 1 teaspoon of sugar is about 4.2 grams. So that's a lot of math to do. We're going to try to make it a little easier for you. Keep in mind that the average American is consuming more than that recommendation. Typically, an American will consume about 17 teaspoons or about 71 grams daily. So quite a bit more on average than the recommendation. Added sugars are one of those nutrients that we should be looking to decrease in our overall diet. And to do that, we can use what we call the 5-20 rule. And I'm going to explain that a little bit. So as you can see at the bottom of this slide, it says the 5-20 rule is you take a look at the percent daily value on the nutrition facts label to determine if a food is a high source or a low source of a nutrient. So we're going to do a little practice here. Take a look at the column on the nutrition facts label that is highlighted in green. That is your percent daily value. We're going to look at that percentage and figure out if this product is a high source or a low source of a few different nutrients. First of all, let's take a look at where the added sugars are. If you see that on the label there, remember it's under total carbohydrates, and you can see that this food includes, one serving includes 10 grams of added sugars. And go over to that percent daily value, and it says that is 20%. So we know, using the 5-20 rule, that this food is a high source of added sugars because it is 20%. Even if it was higher than 20, it would still be a high source. Let's look at a couple other nutrients just for a little practice. For example, if you look at the bottom of the label, you can see that iron at 8.1 milligrams is 45% of your daily value. So this food is also a high source of iron. It's actually a very high source of iron. Let's take a look at some that are a low source. If you look up at the top of the label, you'll see that our saturated fat at 1 gram, look over to the right, and you'll see that it is 5% of saturated fat, 5% of your percent daily value. So this food is a low source of saturated fat. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a great tool to use. You use this to increase the nutrients that we want to get more of, such as our calcium or vitamin D. Some folks need to increase iron, potassium, things like that. And then use it to decrease the things that we should be looking to decrease in our diet, such as our saturated fats, our trans fats, our sodium, and also those added sugars.
So we just wanted to give you guys a bit of a breakdown of where added sugar is coming from in our diet. So as you can see, the biggest bubble there is our sugar sweetened beverages. And just below that to the right is coffee and tea, which, those are also beverages. So if we were to combine those, we would see that over a third of our added sugar intake for the day is coming from our beverages, which is why we really wanted to feature them today and give you guys some really fun recipes that will hopefully, help us decrease our added sugar intake. And this is another kind of visual aid just to see where sugar in our beverages might be coming from. What I will say is some of the drinks on this list, things like orange juice and grape juice, are going to actually have naturally occurring sugars. But we also want to be mindful that the way the fruit is processed to obtain the juice, we lose a lot of really good nutrients, things like our fiber. And so we want to kind of drink juices sparingly. The recommendation is to keep our intake of juice to like a small glass a day. But lots of beverages up there, as you can see, things like water, unsweetened tea, diet, soft drinks. Those are all typically 0 teaspoons of sugar and also low calorie or no calorie. Whereas as we go down the list, we see drinks like sports drinks have some sugar, and there's so many different sports drinks out there too that you would really have to look at that nutrition facts label, because I'm sure there are some that are going to have more sugar than this. Lemonade, sweet tea, which I know most of us here in the South love. I know I do. But, they're still providing a lot of sugar. If y'all remember, our recommendation is to keep our intake to less than 12 teaspoons. So looking at this list, you can see a lot of these beverages in just a 12-ounce serving either are right there at that mark, slightly over or slightly under. And so we just want to be real mindful, with our beverages that we look for options that have less added sugars.
So bearing that in mind, that chart that we just went over, here are some tips where you can swap out those higher sugar beverages for some lower sugar beverages. For example, regular soda, as you saw, they contained a lot of added sugar. So consider, instead of drinking regular soda, maybe take sparkling, plain soda water, club soda, something like that, mineral water, or just plain water, and add your own sliced fruit add a splash of fruit juice, add some herbs like mint, and you've just made infused water. And these can be really nice and refreshing. You know, serve them over ice or however you like to serve it. And they can be a really great refreshing beverage that has very little sugars at all, and no added sugars and very little naturally occurring sugars. Another option here is to make lemon water. A lot of people really enjoy lemon water. It's a really refreshing thing in the summer especially. And you can just make up a pitcher of these infused waters and keep them in your refrigerator and use that instead of soda. Another option would be for your flavored or sweetened coffees. I'm sure a lot of us love to go to the coffee shop and get a nice big, you know, sweetened hot or cold coffee drink. However, when we purchase it like that, we're never quite sure how much, you know, sugars they're adding unless we really do some research and look into their menus or their nutrition information. There could be a lot of added sugars in those flavored or sweetened coffee drinks. So consider making your own, using your own plain iced or hot coffee, adding your own milk of choice. And that way you have the option to add a little bit of sweetener if you like it, but you have control over what you're adding and you know how much you're adding. So that way you know how close you're getting to that, you know, that recommended amount. So also, we just want to mention, be mindful of those milk alternatives. There's a lot of alternative milks, and we'll talk more about that when we do our recipe demonstration too. But be watching the added sugars in those alternative milks. And we're talking about like soy milk and almond milk and rice milk and coconut milk. Some of them are sweetened, some are not. So just be reading that package label. Take a look at the nutrition facts label and take a look at how much added sugar is in that. Read the ingredients list so you know what's in it. For the sweet tea, oops, I was still going, there we go, thanks. The sweet tea, I was just going to mention that try to cut back on the sweetener. Again, maybe make your own, or if you're at a restaurant or someplace where you're serving your own, you know, try to go for a more unsweetened tea. Even ease yourself out of the full, you know, sweetened tea and maybe do half sweetened, half unsweetened or something like that. You know, try to just go a little bit less on the sugars in your sweet teas, and eventually over time your taste buds will come to get used to the taste of things being a little less sweet, and you'll probably learn to like it. And then one last one, the sweetened smoothies. Making your own homemade smoothies using fruits, juice, unsweetened milks and yogurts. It's a great way to get not only get more fruits in your diet, but you're sweetening these smoothies with naturally occurring sugars. And like Kristina mentioned, those come along with some real health benefits like fiber and other nutrients that the fruits will bring to you. Okay, and so here is a chart, and I apologize that it's so small, but you will be receiving this information after the presentation, so you should be able to read it better when you have it. But this is just a chart of a number of the different artificial and non-nutritive sweeteners that you may find in some of your foods. So there's a lot of different sweeteners listed here. Some are what we would call chemical sweeteners. Some are more natural occurring. But take a look at what's on the chart. They're all very different in what they offer. So a couple things that we want to say about this is that what the research shows is that replacing your sugars with these artificial sweeteners, these low or no calorie sweeteners, do serve to reduce your calories, your short-term, intake of calories. They may aid in some short-term weight management. However, the research is very mixed on the long-term weight management. So basically, the science isn't showing whether they're effective for long-term weight management. So just keep that in mind. And then some other considerations with them is that they all have different properties. So if you're going to be adding these to a beverage or baking with them, they all have a little bit of different properties. Some dissolve better, some will leave your drink or your item that you're making it with a little bit gritty. Their sweetness intensity varies. Some are much sweeter than sugar. Some are actually less sweet than sugar. So you have to adjust accordingly. So you really have to know what you're working with, be reading the instructions on the package and how to measure it and that. And then again, like I mentioned, some are natural and some are artificial. So that might be a consideration for you as well.
So I know, of course, we're focusing on beverages today and focusing on, decreasing our added sugar intake, but we do really want to make sure everyone is staying well hydrated too. We don't want to, hopefully we're not discouraging anybody from drinking by, suggesting different beverage options. So we just want to talk about how important our hydration is. We need hydration, through water and other beverages every day. Our regular bodily functions like sweating and going to the restroom and things like that use a lot of water, so we have to constantly replace it. So we have the recommendations for children and adults here, and this is just kind of a general recommendation for the average adult. There are so many factors that may affect our personal beverage needs or fluid needs. So be mindful of that. Certain medications can actually affect how much water we need. Our activity level, of course, if we're sweating a lot more, especially, with it getting warmer outside, we're going to need to be replacing those fluids more frequently. And as we age as well, our fluid needs change. So if it's something that you are concerned about, you can always, speak with your healthcare provider. But one of the easiest ways to make sure that you are well hydrated is just by checking the color of your urine. Very simple. We should pay attention to those signs because it's a really good indicator of our hydration status. So when we're looking, we want our urine to be more of like a lemonade or a pale color. That usually indicates that we're adequately hydrated. If it's getting darker, think maybe like apple juice, we probably need to be hydrating more. And if that's something that's maybe happening frequently, then you should definitely speak with your healthcare provider. And over on the left side, we've got some of the symptoms of dehydration. And, these can kind of appear very suddenly if we're engaging in physical activity. But things like dry mouth, our urine color, headache, muscle cramps, and more severe, we can get real dizzy, our heartbeat can speed up, get lethargic, lose our energy, and even get confused. So yeah, just make sure y'all are hydrating. If you are engaging in physical activity, it's recommended to drink about 4 to 6 ounces of water for every 15 to 20 minutes that you're doing that activity. And y'all may be wondering about sports drinks and other like electrolyte replacement beverages. Generally, if we are exercising for less than an hour, we don't really need to replace our fluids with anything other than water. So that would be a personal preference at that point. But if you are doing extended periods of activity, you may want to look into a sports beverage of some kind because it helps provide fuel for the body as well as our needed electrolytes that we might be losing when we're sweating. So I know we just talked a bunch. Does anyone have questions for us?
If you have questions at this time, feel free to unmute and you can ask those.
Hey. Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my question is, you mentioned that in the 2000 calories diet, 10% of our diet should be less. I mean, less than 10% should be, sugar. And then you say also 50 grams, which is equivalent to 50 grams or 12 teaspoons of sugar. Is that including the total carb amount? Because carbs is also, as like the starches and all that, they can be counted as sugar too. When you mentioned the 50 grams, is that the total amount of carbs?
No, ma'am. Great question. So we were referring specifically to added sugars. So that recommendation is for added sugars, not for our carbohydrate intake or total carbohydrate intake. And one thing I do want to mention too is while we, are recommended to get less than 10% of our calories from added sugar, we don't really need any added sugar in our diet if we don't want it. So you can make that number as low as you'd like. But yes, thank you so much. That was a great question. So hopefully we got to clarify that for you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask a question. One, more like a comment. Well, you were talking about artificial sweeteners and low calorie sweeteners, and I just want to say like those brands like let's say Splenda or Stevia, and mind you, like my heritage comes from Central America. We're used to growing pure sugar canes and just eating the canes raw. So I remember drinking Splenda or one of those stevia replacements or calorie whatevers, and my stomach was just like the that chemical compound and those sugars, those artificial sweeteners, they do not sit well with my body. Like my stomach has this like I get nauseous after drinking those artificials. But when it comes to real pure cane sugars, I can eat that all day. Um, so do you have anything, a word of wisdom towards artificial sweeteners?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience. And it is actually common with some of our artificial or our alternative sweeteners to have like GI upset. So things like nausea or gas or cramps and those kinds of things. And I know that there's been some research done with stevia specifically. So while that one is a natural substance, some people do experience GI problems. Sugar alcohols are another one that some people just don't really tolerate very well. Um, you mentioned eating cane
Yeah.
sugar or drinking cane juice, which is really interesting because that is naturally occurring in that state. It hasn't been processed. I don't know the extent of the health benefits of just chewing on sugar cane or anything like that. But one thing to consider maybe is just if you do really prefer added sugars, just to slowly decrease them in your beverages, and we can actually really train our taste buds to desire sweet things less. Sometimes it takes a little while, but if maybe you like your morning coffee with 3 teaspoons of sugar, if you were to decrease it to 2 or 1, rather than maybe just cutting it cold turkey, it can help our body adjust and adapt. Do you have anything that you wanted to add, Laura?
Oh, no, I think you covered it really well. Yeah, definitely. I've heard of the digestive upset, though, especially with the sugar alcohols like the erythritol and those other ones.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that. Training the taste buds. I'm gonna try that.
Awesome. Well, you guys, we are going to need just a moment to transition to our food demo room, so we can show you some of these great like beverage options that are real fun. We're doing a green theme today for St. Patrick's Day, so we just need a moment to wash our hands and set up, but we'll be right back.
Hi, I want to make sure that everyone knows that if you joined us late or you would like to go back and review the training today, that you can place your email address in the chat box, or you can email Susan Hubert directly so that you can receive the slides, the recipes that they're going to demo today. And if you would like to go back and review the session from today or any of our prior Wellness Wednesday topics. So if you're interested in receiving those, place your email address in the chat box or email Susan Hubert directly. Okay, thank you. I'm getting those. Okay, give us 2 minutes and we'll be rejoining you all for the food demos.
Hey everybody, hopefully you can see us okay. We're rocking our green today. We're gonna be making green beverages. So I'm gonna start off our green tea. And one thing I will say is we'll make sure that you guys get these recipes. They are super customizable. You will not see me do a ton of measuring because you can make this to your taste. So the demonstration that we're doing today, I'm going to be making a half batch. So what you'll need is some kind of vessel to brew your tea in. So you could use a saucepan on the stovetop if that's what works best for you. I know when I make big batches of tea, that's usually how I do it. Or if you have a French press, which you normally use for coffee, that works great too because it's got a built-in strainer. You can use a mason jar, whatever you've got available. So first what we're gonna do is take our mint, and I should tell you guys what exactly we're making, which is gonna be a lightly sweetened green tea with fresh mint and ginger, a little bit of orange. It's super refreshing. I made a test batch of this at home, and then I made it again because I liked it so much. So you can, adjust the herbs to your preference, add more of things or less, but what you want to do with your mint is actually bruise it with your fingers. It releases the essential oils in there. It gets nice and aromatic. The scent fills the room and it's just real pleasant. So I'm gonna throw in about a cup of mint and kind of quickly bruise it here. And then we're also going to be adding some ginger, and you'll need about an inch chunk. So you can just, rip it off. And then we're gonna peel it, which I sometimes struggle with, but I've found the best way to do it is to just kind of shave off the harder exterior with a knife. And then once we do that, we're gonna just thinly slice it. Doesn't have to be super small, but by slicing it thinly, we're creating more surface area, so we get that nice ginger flavor in our tea. And if you don't care for ginger, of course, you can leave that out as well. And then I am gonna sweeten mine a little bit. So this, of course, is optional too. You can really sweeten it to taste. I'm gonna put in about a tablespoon. This makes a little over 3 cups, but you know, you guys can always do less or use a different sweetener if you'd like. And then I'm also gonna add my green tea. And I probably should have done that first because I need the tablespoon, but I'm gonna borrow Laura's. So I actually brought some loose leaf green tea from home. You can find this sometimes at like the bulk section of a grocery store. Go to a tea shop if you really like, but you can also definitely just use green tea bags. And we recommend you use 3 tea bags in place of what's called in the recipe if that's how you're doing it. But you can adjust how many you use as well, just depending on your preference. So I need 1 tablespoon for our half batch. Okay, so I've got all of the things that are gonna steep together. And so what we're gonna do is add our boiling water. And then we're just gonna let it hang out for about 10 minutes while we demo our other recipe. So this is another thing that you can customize too. If you don't like your tea super strong, you can let it steep for less time. Something else that you can consider as well as boiling water will actually make our green tea a little bit bitter. So if you don't care for that, you can let it come to a boil and sit for a couple of minutes and then pour it onto your mixture. But we're just gonna let this sit now. So I'm gonna turn it over to Laura.
Sure, okay. So what I'm gonna demonstrate is a simple green smoothie, and it's a nice bright green smoothie, and it's got a mixture of vegetables and fruits. So this is one of those smoothies that, you know, you hear about putting greens in smoothies and you might not think that you like that, or you maybe don't want to try it, but I really encourage you to try this because you really can't taste the greens and they add a lot of extra nutrition to it. So the first thing I'm going to do though is we are actually going to demonstrate this on the smoothie bike, and I need to grab the blender off the bike. So give me just a second. So you'll get a fun little demonstration today of how we use our smoothie bike. So this is our smoothie canister. Now this recipe calls for you in the directions to be adding the ingredients and then blending between each addition. I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to basically add everything to the blender right away, and then we're going to blend it all at once, and it works just great. I've made it, and it works really well like that. So, so our first ingredient is 1 cup of canned spinach. So we just got a bag of spinach, nice fresh spinach from the grocery store, and me too, I'm not really gonna measure this. I'm just gonna kind of pour it into the blender about a cup. And again, these recipes, like Kristina said, they're very customizable. You can add more or less of something if you want to tweak the flavor a little bit to your liking, your taste buds. So because spinach is really light and airy, if that was packed on, I'm gonna say that's about a cup. When you measure spinach, we want to kind of pack it into the cup. So I think that's pretty close. We're going to add a banana, just a medium banana. They're, they come in all different sizes. So we're just gonna throw this in. You don't really have to cut it up or anything. It's gonna get blended. So we'll just do that. Oh, sure. And then we have 1 cup of low-fat milk, or optional coconut milk or almond milk. So here's where I'm going to talk about our milks a little bit. So you definitely have a lot of options with milks. You can choose to go with dairy milk. If you do, we recommend going with a lower fat because, of course, dairy milk is going to contain saturated fat. and we want to try to be reducing the saturated fat in our diet. And that also reduces the calories then too in the milk if it's lower in fat. However, you have a lot of other options. Some people don't consume dairy for various reasons. Maybe you have a lactose intolerance or allergy or just for other reasons. So you certainly have lots of milk options. There are almond milks, coconut milks, rice milk, soy milk. There's even a whole bunch of new ones that I'm starting to see on the market now. So we chose an almond milk, and this is unsweetened. So when you're buying an alternative milk, a couple things you want to be checking. Be looking at, first of all, the added sugars. Get to know how much added sugar is in the one that you're buying. They're all different. Even within the same brand, you'll find variations. You'll find sweetened and unsweetened. So take a look at that nutrition facts label. Use your 520 rule to see if it is a low source or high source of added sugars. This one actually has 0 added sugar. It is unsweetened. So it's a low source of added sugars. So that's good. Another important consideration when you are using milk alternatives is that not all milk alternatives have that calcium like cow's milk would. And you probably know that calcium is an important part of our diet, especially as we age. So you want to have a source of calcium in your diet. So be checking to see if your milk that you choose has added calcium. Again, use that nutrition facts label. Take a look at, is this serving going to be a high source or low source of calcium? And I'm looking at this one, and it is only 4%. So it is a low source of calcium. It does not have the added calcium. So it's just important to know that because, we do need calcium in our diet. So know that you're not getting it from your milk product and get it from something else in your diet that day. Okay, so we're just gonna add a cup of our milk here, right to our blender. Of course, we want to use our liquid measuring cup when we're measuring. That gives us a little bit of headspace so we don't spill.
And I'll just say, I was off to the side kind of quietly prepping some of our stuff. So I've cut up the one medium-sized apple that we need, and you can choose whatever apple you like. We went with Granny Smith, another green thing to include. And then also too, I just kind of sliced up my oranges, which are really acting as a garnish for our tea.
Okay, and the next ingredient here is a cup of plain yogurt. So we just have a big bulk container of plain unsweetened yogurt, and I'm just going to measure out a cup. And this is a great way to add creaminess to the smoothie, and it is unsweetened, so you're not adding any added sugars. There are likely some naturally occurring sugars in the yogurt, but not very much. And definitely no added sugars. So we're going to put that in. Next ingredient is our apples. So 1 apple, medium, cored and sliced, which Kristina did, thank you. And we're just going to add that in. You can certainly use whatever apple you like too. Some are more tart, some are, sweeter. Definitely leave the peel on for added nutrition. There's a lot of extra fiber, and that peel adds the color of the apple. And color means nutrition, lots of phytonutrients and antioxidants and things in the colored parts of our fruits and vegetables. Okay, and then our next ingredient is our 1 cup of frozen fruit. So it says all one fruit or a combination or a mixture of frozen fruit. So you have a lot of options here. Put in your favorites. We chose mango chunks because mango is just such a nice sweet fruit. Regardless of what you choose, you're going to have lots of additional fiber and nutrients added. Can't open that bag, I'm gonna have to cut it. Okay. There we go. Okay. So it is a cup of our frozen fruit. So, loosely measured here. Again, very subjective. If you like a little more frozen fruit in there, go ahead and add 1. Okay. And And that's all that's really required for the recipe. There's a couple optional ingredients, and those are if you want to add flaxseed or chia seed. We brought them, they're right here. Chia seeds and flax seeds will add a little additional protein, definitely additional fiber, and even a little bit of the omega-3 fatty acids to your smoothie if you want to add them. They do, however, change the texture a little bit, and you may like that, you may not like that. I'd encourage you to try it at some point and see if you like it, because they do add a lot of good fiber, and it's, they're a really good source of that, and then that little bit of omega-3 fatty acids. Most of us don't get enough of those in our diet. They typically come from fish. So this is a good way to get a little bit of that in your diet. One note, if you do buy these seeds and you store them in your home, we just want to mention that it's important to store them in the refrigerator or the freezer, because they do go bad after a while. There's a lot of healthy fats in them, and so it's better for them to be stored cold. All right, so we are ready to blend.
Laura,
I think.
Laura and Kristina, we have a few questions in the comment in the chat.
Sure.
So one is, the milk does not contain calcium, but we know that spinach is a source of calcium. So that's one. And also the yogurt is calcium. And we have another one. It seems to me mango is high in sugar content, but I guess it is the good sugar or the naturally occurring sugar.
So I'll address that last comment. Our fruit is going to be that naturally occurring source of sugar. The actual carbohydrate content of our fruit does vary some, but we're getting a lot of really good nutrition from our mangoes. It's a high source of vitamin C, lots of fiber. So it's a good option, to have a smoothie that is naturally sweet versus one that has a lot of added sugars. But I didn't fully hear that first one. I apologize.
It was just saying that the yogurt is also a source of calcium too. Is that the one? And
Yes.
And then the last one, chia seeds are great. They will keep you full longer, and they're great on salads too.
That's a great point. Yes, they do add, some of that fullness because of the fiber and the fats. I heard you mention about the spinach with the calcium too, and that is a great point to bring up. There is a little bit of calcium in our greens, not as significantly high amounts as in our milk products or dairy products, but just for example, because this spinach happens to have a nutrition facts label on the back, I'll just tell you what it is. In 2 cups of spinach, which is the serving size here, there is 80 milligrams of calcium, which is 6% of our daily value. So it's considered, if we use that 520 rule, it's a lower source of calcium. However, it is in there, and it's a good point to, remember that our grains do contain calcium.
Okay, one more. What kind of sweetener did you use? I think when you were making the tea, was it honey?
I chose honey. Of course, you could use anything that you'd like, or you can choose not to sweeten it. It's really up to your preference, which is so great. And I am going to come back to our tea here for just a second before I hop on the smoothie bite. But I just wanted to show you guys what I did. So I used my strainer to, hold back the tea and mint and everything else that steeped together. So we've got our hot beverage right here, and you can absolutely drink it warm. I know it's getting kind of hot outside, so I'm going to make mine iced. So I just grabbed a glass. We're using the orange to garnish, but you could totally throw that in there as it's steeping too if you want maybe a little additional fruit flavor. And then I'm just going to pour it directly on the ice. You could also let this cool down before you ice it, if that's the route you're going, so it doesn't, water down your beverage. And then you make it as pretty as you like. So I'm going to just garnish it with a little bit of mint. And I was sipping this all day when I made it to try it out, but it is delicious. So we're gonna blend our smoothie now. You guys get to watch me use the smoothie bike for the first time, so I'm excited. got it secured. So of course, a regular blender at home will work just fine. It's not we tried this out previously, promise, and it worked. And you know what? These things tend to happen, so we've actually got a backup blender over here. So we're gonna pour everything in there. Okay, so we're just transitioning to our regular tabletop blender. See that wrapped it up and what it looks like. And while she's getting that together, I did actually want to bring y'all's attention to these food models I have. So you can see they're plastic bottles with quite a bit of goopy fake sugar. We've actually got a smoothie here. So I know during our presentation, we talked a lot about how foods that may be marketed by food manufacturers as something fairly healthy, like granola and smoothies, can actually be a really high source of added sugars. So what this represents is the amount of added sugar that you would get if you consumed one of these smoothies every day for a week. And it ends up being 508 grams of sugar. So it's quite a bit. Which is why, you know, we wanted to feature a smoothie with, I think ours doesn't have any added sugar in it. So, all right, I'll get it blending here. And I know whenever I use a blender, I always have a spatula handy. I'm kind of scraping down the sides and pushing things in, and that helps get everything blended evenly. I'm just gonna give it one more little scrape down. I'm seeing some tiny bits of spinach in there yet, so we'll make sure we get it all blended. But it's starting to be that pretty green color. Okay. Hey, I think it's ready. Look how good that looks. Good color for St. Patrick's Day, definitely. Good color for a healthy green smoothie. And I think you'll find that it's really very sweet because we put all that good fruit in it. It's all natural occurring sugar. There's apples, bananas, mango. It's creamy from the dairy and it's got those healthy greens in it too.
Laura?
Yeah.
Okay, we have questions. Do you soak the chia seeds before adding to the salad? Do you have to soak them?
Well, before adding to a salad, I would not. I would just sprinkle them on top. If you're using it in a smoothie, you could soak them if you want to. They're going to kind of blend up in the smoothie pretty quickly. If you let the smoothie sit a while, they're actually going to gel a little bit. So it's going to start to thicken up your smoothie just a little bit. But you could blend them as much or as little as you want. They're still going to have that
kind of gelling effect. It's gonna serve as a thickener.
Okay, one more. I was told that when making smoothies, there should be a 3-to-1 ratio, meaning 3 veggies to 1 fruit. What do you think?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've actually never heard that. But I think, making it to your preference is important. So finding the ratio that works best for you. If maybe you are opting for something with less naturally occurring sugar as well, you may want to go with more of the greens and maybe a little bit less of the apple and mango. But yeah, I think it would really just be what you want out of your smoothie.
Okay, he said, thanks for the information. I think this is the conclusion of our Wellness Wednesdays, Wellness Wednesday today. I want to thank Lora and Kristina for a great job. There is a survey for you all to complete. The link is in the chat. Please go and complete the survey to just provide feedback on how we're doing, ways that we can improve, and also add topics that you may be interested in in the future. So please complete that as soon as possible. And we would like to invite you to our next session on March 31st, where we're going to have a fun session on creating charcuterie boards or grazing boards. This should be interesting. So please complete the survey and we will see you again on March 31st. Have a great day.